All right. Awesome. Well, welcome
Welcome to
everybody.
the Invention Licensing Show. I'm your host, David Fedewa, and I'm here.
Where that came from. That's a way to start a webinar.
There you go. You already have your recording ready.
Yeah, I don't even need to say a word. But yeah, my name is David Fedewa, and I help people license products. And so that was the live stream because it's going out elsewhere. So, but I'm David Fedewa. This is Amy Jo, and we are doing a live event for the Iowa group. And we have some people from the UIA here and some people also from the tribe I see in the attendees. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Yes, thank you guys for joining in. It's so much fun. It was kind of last minute notice. We gave you like 48-hour notice. So that's wonderful that you're here.
Well, I mean, the big reason that we're here so quick was, it had to happen quick,
That's right.
When things come together. So
that's right. That's how this industry works. And you have to kind of be on your toes all the time.
Yep. And I mean, that's part of this webinar is I wanted to tell that story to everybody and kind of show everybody the experiences that I had with this deal and how it came together and the parts and pieces. So I'm really excited.
Well, I'm excited to hear more about it because I know we talked a little bit about it earlier today, but just talking about the ins and outs of deals and how you get started with a deal and the length of time that it takes and some things that are obstacles, that type of stuff. And the importance of when to sign is also another thing that we're going to discuss today. So David, I mean, tell us about, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about how this whole thing started to begin with. Because it's quite interesting.
So Amy Jo, as you know, I'm an open book. So just ask. And I think that's part of the reason that I coach and teach was because when I was kind of coming up through this process, I wanted somebody that, I could see those things through and see and experience and learn from. And so that's why I bring as much as I can to the inventing community. And so the reason this whole deal came about, and this is funny, it's funny start to it, was in 2021, I was doing a challenge. So I started a challenge for inventors and I had people that wanted to be in this. And so there was about 12 people. And what it was the challenge was set up so that every week we'd meet in a small group and everybody had their own project. And then I had my own project. And we went step by step through the 5 steps of how to license it. So I was showing everybody, I wasn't just telling everybody like, this is how you license a product. I was showing everybody with my product that I was using. I had this product that I kept as my example and I would show everybody, all right, how do you do research, right? And then I would do research with my product. And then I go to, step 2, I'd say, this is how you build out marketing material. And so then I'd build up marketing material with this product. And it's actually pretty kind of cool because we recorded all these different like webinars and hour-long meetings and all this different stuff. And so the way that it started was I was doing this challenge and I picked this product to do this challenge with all the other inventors. And so that's how it got started.
That's really funny. Well, and it's a good thing because it goes to show like lead by example, like this is how you do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought it was super cool. The fact that it was like, I've never recorded the whole process because like when you license a product, you don't necessarily know if it's going to be a winner. So you don't like record the process along the way because you're always just like, oh, I'm going to go for this. And so we got to record it and it wasn't even just like recorded, but it was like, I was teaching with it and showing the different examples and all the different aspects of that product and how I built marketing and reasons why I put different things in it. And then it just so happened that like, when I got to that pitching phase, I pitched it to this company that ended up licensing it to, and they're like, we're interested, let's do this.
Yeah. No, that's really exciting. I mean, that's a great thing because it goes to show, like you said earlier, like when we were talking about it, like it goes to show it works, like the process works. And so this is how you need to execute it. And I think that it's interesting to like think about recording. I mean, not everybody has to do it, but like recording the steps, even for your own self, to be able
Yeah.
to look back, like, you know, whether it was a success or a failure, you know,
You
be able to
learn.
look back and be like, okay, what did I do right? What did I
Yeah.
do wrong? You
You're,
know?
you're talking about like doing game tape for like, you know, like
Yeah.
football teams, they watch their game tape.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
game
That's
tape.
exactly right. Yeah. Because I mean, come on, we've been pitching for over a decade, and it's like, okay, I'd love to see myself from like 10 years ago when I was like
Oh.
brand spanking new.
I don't want to see it.
When I'd like to be like, okay, what worked and what didn't work, you know,
Yeah.
then, because
Yeah.
the industry has changed.
It
As
has.
you know, I've been pitching all day,
Yep.
and I haven't had the chance to even talk to you about that, but the
Mhm.
industry has changed in the
Yes.
way that you pitch.
Yeah. Well, so like I'll go back through old emails because like I'll be like, oh, you know, I remember a contact at a company, right? And so I'll go back and as I'm going back trying to find this contact, I end up starting to read my emails and it's like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
like I'll read some of my own emails and I'm like, I don't even understand what I'm saying here, but like, I don't know. I ended up doing deals with it, but like I didn't, and to let everybody know out there, like I'm a terrible writer. Like
You're not. You say that, but you're
well,
not.
so like I used to be, and I've improved quite a bit over the years because I've done a lot of writing and like a lot of pitching, but like naturally it's a lot of hard work for me. It's a lot of focus where like some people there's like typing and like eloquent words come out. For me, it's hard work in terms of like mental capacity and focus but like going back to those old emails in like 2008, 2009, some of them just, I mean, that was before Grammarly and like all these things that fixed the parts of my spelling and whatnot. And so
Well,
yeah,
okay.
like, so to like take a picture and that's what I want to like impress upon people through my journey is like, I wasn't perfect, but I was pitching. And so like, I had bad grammar. But I was out there, I was doing it and I was getting my product in front of people because if you show somebody a cool innovation that they know that they can make money off of, they don't necessarily care that you have correct grammar or not. They know they want to move forward with the product. So that's
if anything, they feel like it's like an advantage on their behalf.
That's like they can outsmart me now. But
yeah, and so they think, yeah. And so, okay, well, let me ask you this before we kind of move on to some other questions that I have for you.
Yeah.
How many deals do you have under your belt, not with students, but your own up to date?
Personal products?
Yeah.
So technically this will be my 7th. I don't count one of them because it like fell apart days after. So I would say this is my 6th deal.
That's awesome.
For myself.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And then of course we say all the time how many you've helped with other people.
Yeah.
That's over what, like almost 200 students you've helped license deals, close deals.
178.
178. There we are. That's pretty darn good record, I'd say.
Yeah.
And you've helped me with 2. I need to get back on the bandwagon there, but I've been working with students instead. And so, all right. So moving on, you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation that you started this competition in 2021. So how about we talk about time frame?
Yeah. So I'm gonna like give everybody something that'll scare people. So I pitched this product to them February of 2021. So that is 20 months. So 20 months ago, almost 2 years ago, I pitched the product, right? And that seems like, oh my gosh, that's so long. And that's where you're going with this, right?
Yep, that's where I'm going. Yep.
Right. And like, yes, that is longer than normal, 100%. And, you know, most commonly deals are closing in like 3 to 6 months, sometimes 9 months. But I want to tell you the reason why this is because of like, let's say 3 to 6 months, later, I signed a licensing agreement after presenting it to them. Awesome, great. But there's still this time period in which they are working through the details of manufacturing, packaging, pricing until they get it so that it's ready for market. Right. And so it doesn't matter if they do that before you sign a deal or after you sign a deal. It doesn't matter when that is, it's going to happen. So I can say, oh, yay, I inked a deal. Well, so we waited as we were working through those different details, right? The manufacturing, the costing, the packaging. And sometimes, honestly, like inventors are not involved in that, but it's happening on the back end. I love to push my nose in and be involved. And so I was getting very involved in the processes. You don't have to be, but you can be. And because, I love it. I have a ton of fun. It's problem solving, it's creativity. It's all these things that help move the product forward. And so we worked through all those details, and now we've solidified the product. We've got samples, we're shelf ready, and it's launching at the houseware show in March. And so instead of like, like I could have signed this deal back in 2021 and then waited until the product came out, right? It's same result. Product's not coming out until this time period anyways. It's just you're working through the details, either pre-signing or post-signing. And just so happens with this deal, it's closer to the actual launch of the product than it is the front end or the presentation of the product to the company.
And that's kind of, I would imagine that there are details in having those conversations and waiting to sign the contract to make sure that you're just kind of finalizing those loose ends, right? Like, I mean, right?
I think you put it well. What was it's not over until the ink is.
I did a webinar for it's the deal is not done until the ink is dry.
That's it.
Yeah.
The deal's not done until the ink is dry.
Or when the ink is dry.
When the ink is dry. Yeah. We'll get it right.
Yeah. It's been a while. So
and so what Amy Jo's talking about is a lot of times you can sign a licensing agreement, and then through that process of like bringing the product to market, pricing, manufacturing, the deal actually can fall apart. And when it falls apart, basically the licensee calls you or sends you an email and says, Dave, Amy Jo, this is not going to work. And then you'd be like, oh no. Right. And so either they're doing that on the front end or they're doing that on the back end, that work, that due diligence of figuring everything out. And so like in delaying my signature of this deal, I was being adamant and available and pushing my project forward within their company so that I made sure that we got to the point where we're ready to launch. We got pricing figured out. We got materials, all those different details that go into launching a product, they're all figured out. So when we sign this, like we're already slotted for going on the shelf in different places instead of.
You have purchase orders, distribution, you have all of that ready to go. You're going to get a payday.
Yes. So this will pay out. Where in the beginning of my career, I signed licensing agreements just out of the excitement of getting them signed, and they fell apart. Like I had a couple of deals fall apart early on without knowing and understanding how that all works. I was completely shocked. But in reality, that's a normal thing if you're not doing this due diligence part.
Mm-hmm. You have to ask the right questions, right? Like you have to ask those right questions. You have to make sure that they're actually executing the process. Some companies will license it just to not put your product on the shelf, but to shelf it. Yes. And so now you're under contract and they have ownership over your product for 3 years or 5 years, unless you have some type of term in there that says if they don't launch at a certain period of time, you get it back. So the 20 months thing seems like a scary thing, but what you're making sure to do is, hey, let's dot the I's, cross the T's, and make sure that this is actually going to go, or I'm going to take it somewhere else. Yep.
And everybody asks that question when you're getting into it. When do you want to license, or when do you want to launch this product? Because one of my early on products that launched, I never asked the question, but in my head, I signed the contract, super excited. I was like, oh, great. 6 months from now, we'll have it launched and then it'll be out and ready for Christmas. And so like 6 months comes around and I sent him an email, and I sent an email like, how's it going? Like, why are we not on the shelf? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't specifically say that, but I just said, how's it going? And they emailed back like, it's going great. We're right on schedule. And I was like, wait, 1 second. Like, what do you mean you're on schedule and you haven't? And they're like, I was like, oh crap. I never asked what the schedule was. And so I replied and I was like, well, what's your target launch date? And it was like 12 months from that point. So it was like 6 months plus 12 months. So it was 18 months after we signed the agreement. And so it just never, like, I never asked that question, which I needed to in that time period so that I could, have an understanding. Part of it's emotional, right? I had this expectation that product's going to be out in 6 months. And then basically, almost what felt like years later it came out. But if I know that it's coming out later, then it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, that number one, what you're saying is setting appropriate expectations. Two is, being seasoned enough to know the right types of questions to ask, and when to ask them, because we don't want to be a nuisance to them. They like, I know how you had mentioned earlier, you're like, I kind of want to be involved, but some inventors want to be too involved. But then there are others, which in one of my deals that I lost, I wasn't involved at all because I didn't ask the right questions. Kind of like what you had mentioned with your 7th deal. I didn't ask the right questions, because I thought that it was just the ball was in their court. They were going to handle it, and I didn't know the ETA. I didn't know what I needed to be involved in. Try to stay at top of their priority list, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So there's a balance, there's a sweet spot there in trying to, and every company operates differently, right? And so
you do.
You have to kind of feel out how they want to work.
You do. And so like a lot of the times, and it's a very much so a feel thing. Mm-hmm. Because like in this deal that we're signing today, it was not a top priority when we got started because they had a lot of question marks about price and cost and those things. And so they sent it to the factory, and the factory took a month to get back. And so they weren't like prioritizing this as like number one priority, get it back to us in a day. They're like, let's get it priced. Let's get it back. It didn't come back what they wanted. So they sent it out to another factory, and that took a month. So that was 2 months of just figuring out pricing and an option that made sense to them. Mm-hmm. So but like, I wasn't pushing for answers, because if I would have pushed for answers, they'd just been like, you know what? We don't need an inventor sitting there biting at our heels and always bothering us, because I knew, and like, just from them talking about it, when we initially talked, I was like, I'm excited to work with you guys. What's your thoughts here? And they're like, we're excited. We love this product, but we have question marks on price, on cost, and it's going to take us a while to figure that out. And so I follow up with them once a month, checking in just to make sure the project's going forward. And I did that enough so that they're like, oh yeah, let's check in, let's move this thing forward. And we did that enough times that we got to the point. And here's like, I love this webinar. If you're in the tribe, you've seen this webinar, but it's manage your way to a deal. And essentially you can email them, and like, they have certain assets that they need, right? Pricing, CADs, packaging. And if you get them to slowly put all these things together, then they're like, all right, we've got everything ready to launch this product. And that's what we did with this, was that I emailed them over, months of just kind of like slow back and forth. And then they got pricing, and then they figured out mold costs, and then they figured out packaging. And then they slowly put all these pieces together, and they're like, all right, let's present this to buyers. They present it to buyers interest, and they're like, all right, now we've got a deal. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't that slow, methodical process of continually working through this, then if I would have come in and push, they would have just pulled right out. They would have said it's not worth it for us to deal with this pressure and the development that it takes to get there. So,
mm-hmm. and I love that you touch on all of those points, because this isn't even just about licensing. And because I know we have people here that are not part of the tribe, And some people are venturing their own companies. Some people are selling online. And even though we specialize in licensing, testing the market and like and approaching whoever it is that you're working with is the same, pretty much the same method in general. Because like if you're trying to talk to a manufacturer and you're trying to launch your own product, they still need to have time to get those quotes. They need time to figure that stuff out. Yep. And so you're gonna burn relationships if you don't do it, like if you're patient, politely patient.
Well,
you know.
So like to reinforce that point, we as entrepreneurs and inventors, we're passionate, we're fiery, we have the ability to like, all right, here's our product, let's work through it, and boom, we're done. We send it off to somebody. Well, somebody else has other people's projects they're working on. They have other things going on. And so like, yes, we want our project to be the very top priority of everybody that we ever work with, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
And so you take that into perspective and just say like, everybody else is working through their own stuff, like give them time, then venturing or licensing, you come out with better outcomes.
Yes, exactly. Being what do we call it? Persistently patient.
Persistently.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Persistently patient. No, it's persist. No, yeah, that's it.
I think that's what we call it. Yeah,
patiently.
So okay, I'm a little anxious because I keep seeing that pen wave around, and
put it down.
No, I want to see it. So everyone who's invited here, David has not signed his agreement yet. But he has officially negotiated it, and everybody's in agreement to it. So we wanted to do this webinar today to be able to share in celebration of David's 7th deal. So I want to see you sign it.
I did. I have been holding this pen. And,
I haven't seen it. Like, I want to sign it. Like it's.
I'm like, hey, Joe, stop talking. I want to get this thing signed. Let's do it. No, I'm just kidding.
You can never get me to stop talking. Okay, let's see it. Let's do a countdown. All right. 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
All right.
Let's sign it. And the deal's done. Yay. So exciting. So what you guys are not allowed to know, because this is another tip that David can introduce you to if you've never signed a deal before. There are certain companies who require an NDA. So he can only disclose a limited amount of information about the product. He's not able to disclose the company name yet, or the actual product yet, but he can disclose the benefits. So David, I'm gonna let you take that on because I didn't sign the contract.
Yeah. So yeah, and the product launches in March at the Houseware Show, which I'll be at. And actually Amy, Joe, and I are speaking at that. So if you guys are around Chicago and in that area in March, we'd love to see you. But yeah, I'll be at their booth taking pictures, hopefully, with the product launch. And so yeah, and I don't know, I guess what else do we want to know?
Well, I just have to say it's really funny because you and I are so different. When you get excited, you get more quiet. When I get excited, like I just want to like scream and yell at everybody. So it's because you were like super stoked up until you signed that, and then all of a sudden, like I just noticed the change. Congratulations, David. I really am excited for it. Yeah. You've earned that. that.
Thank
you. Yeah, so we'll be.
Yeah, that's my excited. It's quiet.
You're excited is getting more quiet. I'm like, okay, well, if David's not talking, apparently he's excited. But
yep. Keep quiet.
But me, I yell at people. So sorry, people.
No,
who's on here? Yeah, but yeah, we'll be talking at the hardware show, and we're going to be talking at the houseware show. And so if you guys are going to be around either in Vegas or Chicago, we'll be there. We'd love to see you. And David will be promoting this product in Chicago in March. And so the company name and the actual product will be released at that point.
Yep. So that'll be a ton of fun.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the times I can talk about more details on it, but yeah, I mean, very, very exciting, very fun.
Well, okay. Did you say that the, like, at least the benefits of the product?
It keeps fruits and vegetables fresher longer.
Keeps fruits and vegetables fresher longer. That's the product. So, or that's the benefit of the product.
Yep.
It's a really cool product. I kind of know what it is.
He gets to see it.
Yeah. But little teaser. It's a little teaser till March.
Teaser. Well, and it's I don't know. I'm excited to give it to all my family members for Christmas.
Do I get one? I want one.
Yeah. I
Okay.
can do one.
That'd be cool.
For sure.
Okay. Do we want to open this up for Q&A then?
I'd love to. I'd love to take anybody's questions and talk about as much as I can. So anybody that has questions, the Q&A box is open. Also the chat, either one, whichever one works out best for you guys. They want to start sending in questions. I think they're already starting to populate.
Mm-hmm.
You said you'd disclose the royalty, Bev. Yes, I would. Thanks for calling me out, Bev. No, I meant to say that actually earlier. So this is just a standard 5% deal. There wasn't like and actually, Bev, thank you for bringing that up. Like a lot of people have the perception because of Shark Tank, they think that royalty negotiations, and Bev knows you've signed a licensing agreement, but like they think that negotiations are like Shark Tank. And they're like this trading back and forth of numbers, but they're not. They're like this drawn out discussion over a couple months. And it's like, so how does 6% sound to you? They'd be like, well, let me check with the team, see if we can run the numbers. And they'll run the numbers and email you back and say, yeah, 6% works. And that'll be like a week long or 2 week long thing. And so that's where we like, you get into the well, I guess I won't go into that part, but that'll just get into a long story. But so like I guess negotiations, they're long, they're drawn out, they're slow, they're methodical, and they're questions, they're not demands. And that's how deals get put together. So yes, Bev, thank you for calling me out. Appreciate it.
So she said she laughs at you because you were calling her out for calling you out. Thanks, David. And you said
you'd answer.
Yeah. What? Okay. Sorry, my eyes are getting bad. What is the projected sales? That's quite the question right there.
Yeah. So we discussed it and we didn't get down to any hard numbers because one of the things about this product was it was a different price point for the company, something that they're not typically used to. So they had a very hard time coming up with projected sales. And they said, let us get it in front of buyers and we'll be able to kind of tell you that over the next like 2 months. And so we discussed it, but they said essentially like, we'll have a better idea by the time we get to the houseware show of what that will actually be over the next, year to 2 years. So,
yeah. And go ahead.
No, go.
I had a quick thought here while people are putting their questions in. You have a nice theory on stocking up a portfolio of products, and so I feel like that goes along with realistic expectations, where when it comes to certain products, I'm not talking about this one particularly, but when it comes to certain products like the novelty products, whatever,
okay,
you could maybe possibly make like, projected sales. They say, okay, well, the licensor, the licensor, which would be us, could make like 10 grand a year if it's like a seasonal product or something like that.
So yeah, I get what you're saying. So like the novelty gift, seasonal products, that's usually like 5 to 10 grand in royalties as a projection. I mean, they always start out
per year.
Yeah, per year. And they usually start out low, like 1 to 2 grand, and then they can get up to that like 5 grand to 10 grand. So they're not big money, but they license a lot more products there. And so like you have a higher probability of having like multiple licensing deals. Then when you get into everyday consumer products that are like,
Kitchenware.
yeah, they're non-seasonal. You can range anywhere from like that 10,000 to like 50, sometimes 80,000 a year. 80,000 is kind of getting towards the high end.
Yeah.
And then you can get into like packaging products and some others, where you can get into those like 6-figure numbers. And
Mhm.
so like, it's kind of funny, like the categories kind of stratify the different amounts that you make. But like, right, the higher you go up on that stratosphere, the lower probability you usually have a licensing, because higher competition, and they just license less products in those spaces. So
Mhm.
a lot
Or
of
it's more complicated.
more complicated, more
Requires
complex.
education for the consumer, a lot of things.
Well, and even a bigger investment on the inventor's part, right? Now you're investing into like intellectual property portfolios. You're not just filing a PPA where you're in these like consumer products. You're getting into like, all right, we need a patent portfolio to start working in these other deals where you have
Mhm.
multiple patents, where some of them are granted, some of them are in process, things like that. And so that's why like people would be like, oh, I'm just going to go after the top one. I'm like, well, with no experience, you can't really just like walk into it and be like, boom,
Yeah.
I'm going to get a licensing deal with $1 million. I mean, it's possible, but I look at probabilities in all the things that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, Bev actually prompted that question in my mind about the projected sales, and your answer to that is, I mean, if it's an improvement on something, it's one thing, but if you don't really have a whole lot of competition, then that's why it's more difficult to get that, projected sales number. And, so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a lot of variables.
Yeah. And to like, sorry, there's something clicked also. So like if the company sells hammers and they sell 10,000 hammers a year and you're making an improvement on the hammer, they know how many hammers they sell. But then if you give them a new widget where it does something completely different, they don't have that baseline of like, we sell 10,000 hammers. So they can't project on it. And that's kind of what Amy Jo was saying is like, if they don't have those baselines, they don't have any numbers to project on. So they have a very difficult time saying, this is what it is. And so that's why improvements get licensed more so than just regular new, like revolutionary innovation.
Yeah. Again, circling back to the revolutionary innovation is the harder one to license, because it usually takes more manufacturing, engineering, blah, 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 all that stuff. So not to harp on that, but I mean, we could have a whole webinar on that one.
Take a whole hour on that.
Yeah. All right. So Tim asks, how did you first contact the company?
Phone call.
Yeah.
I will say I had a previous relationship with them before. And so, it's from being in the business and pitching products in this category that I already knew them, had worked with them in the past. So it made it an easier contact to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody told you, congrats, man, long time in the making, but I can't pronounce the name.
That's base. It's David.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Okay, Daniel. Congrats, David. Okay. Is this a company you've worked with in the past? You already answered that. Okay.
Bev.
All right. Bev's back.
Love it, Bev.
Thank you for the activity, Bev.
Yeah.
All right. Did you get minimum guarantees in your contract? And can you say more about that?
No. So this is a category that doesn't regularly do minimum guarantees. So what minimum guarantees do is they return. And so like, I guess the reason I'm okay without having minimum guarantees is because if you look at technically what minimum guarantees do, and it's a huge misunderstanding in the industry of what they actually do, because minimum guarantees, most inventors and companies think that what they do is they produce a minimum amount of funds to the inventor, but that's not what the like contractual purpose of a minimum guarantee is. The minimum guarantee is not to give you funds, because like I have a minimum guarantee in one of my contracts that says I get 30 grand a year, but I didn't get 30 grand a year, and they didn't pay me 30 grand a year. All it did was convert the license from an exclusive to a non-exclusive. And that's most of the time what you're going to see in minimum guarantee clauses is it's not like they're guaranteeing you funds. It's a guarantee that they get to keep their exclusive license. And so in this instance, what I wanted to give to them in the partnership that we created was I wanted to commit to them in an exclusive way so that they could do what they needed to do to be successful with the product without that thing looming over their head, right? That's probably from having a previous relationship with them. And when you don't know them, minimum guarantees are used to return the product to you if they don't perform. Well, they're already committed. They've already made samples. They've already started down this road. They're already introducing it to buyers. And so to argue to put in minimum guarantees, I might have a loss on that, right? Because part of negotiation is relationship development and then getting what you want. If you always get what you want, you probably deteriorate the relationship quite a bit. And so if you keep a good balance of building relationship, building rapport, and continuing to move the product forward, then you're not going to always get what you want, right? But you got to have that balance. And so what I found in this deal and in this instance, they're going to launch the product. If they weren't going to launch the product, I already know them enough that they would just call me and say, hey, you can have the rights back. But they were saying, they're like, we're already kind of past that point of not producing this because we've already gone through these steps. And so it's like, all right, I'm going to produce royalties off of this. So I don't need that minimum guarantee to return the intellectual property to me throughout the life of this contract. And so that's why I was comfortable with signing an agreement without minimum guarantees.
Yeah. And I mean, again, the main point of what you were making there is that, you know, relationship building is so important. You know, I mean, it's you know, when you know somebody and you trust someone, I mean, business is business. It is what it is. But so you don't want to trust them too much. But at the same time, it's one of those things where if you have a comfort, like they have no reason to withhold your intellectual property if they're not going to do anything with it.
Yeah, exactly. And
not like, this company.
Like contracts, remember, they're really just agreement between two people captured on paper. And so yes, like if you don't trust them, if you've never worked with them before, like you need to get those minimum guarantees, those things in, because you don't necessarily know. And I guess granted, the company, even though I have a great relationship with the owner, that company could be sold to somebody else, and that contractual obligation would then turn over to the new owners. I don't know. You know, I wouldn't have a relationship with them. And so that would not necessarily work, right? Because I put a lot of trust in the relationship that I have with the owner.
Mm-hmm.
But like my objective is to get the product launched and making money, and that's already going to happen. So that's why I didn't feel I needed it.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, I think that makes relationships make a big difference when it comes to the way that you negotiate a deal.
Yep. 100%. Because I know without a doubt, I can go back to them with all my other innovations. I can present them to them. If they like them, we can put together a deal. If not, we can pitch them to somebody else.
And this product, even though you've been working on it for a bit, as far as I know, it's not necessarily like your baby. So so you being easy to work with when it comes to negotiation aspect in order to be able to pitch more things and for our students to be able to pitch more things to them, you know, is worth the risk of no minimum guarantees, you know, like it's just kind of like, we don't have to be so difficult right now. Cause like, all right, well, you take it or leave it. We'll work it out one way or another type of thing.
Yep. And
give and take.
Yep. And yeah, I've gotten rid of all my babies.
Yeah, in a good way.
Yeah. Not my actual babies, but my inventions. Yeah, my invention. But that's a huge thing. And I mean, we talked about that years ago, that like people get overly protective on their baby, and they have a hard time moving forward, or a hard time putting deals together because it is their baby. And I just found it as more detrimental to the success of your product, having it have such an emotional hold on you.
Yeah, it literally a large percentage of the time, which I don't even know what that would be, but a large percentage of the time, it can kill the deal.
I'd say more, yeah, a larger percent of the time it will kill the deal over making it better. So
yeah. So Nick, I don't know for sure if it's Nick or Nikki, but he or she says, congrats, David. I see you both in Chicago. Yay. Looking forward to seeing you too.
Yep.
Tim says, did you ever visit the company and meet them face to face? That's a good question, Tim.
So Tim, I have met them face to face, but it was not specifically over this deal. I met them at a trade show the last time I went to the houseware show, which would have been 2019. I don't know the last time. It was pre-pandemic, actually. Was it?
Yeah, it had to have been.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I have met them face to face, but I haven't done anything. I didn't pitch the product they were interested in. Then I went and met them face to face to discuss this specific product. It was all via email and phone call. I think we did one Zoom call. So yes, but very good question. And I feel that that's important to know. Like, a lot of people feel that they have to meet them face to face. I had one student, this is a long time ago, Seth, he never even talked to them. He just did it via email. And so and I thought that was kind of cool.
I had a student, I was so nervous because I had a student who, which I can say this because he has a granted patent, but he reinvented the toilet. I don't want to talk about the details of it, but he did. And English was not his first language. And he reached out to a Chinese manufacturer, and that was not their first language either. But they didn't communicate very well on the phone. So they were communicating via email. They negotiated a deal, and that Chinese manufacturer sells in all the Menards and Lowe's and Home Depot and all of that. And they ended up working out a decent deal, and just via email. It doesn't always work that way because a lot of things are lost in what I call is textlation, okay, you don't get to know the person, don't build that relationship, that type of thing. But it can work. It can.
But I love having conversations. So
yeah, phone calls number one. Phone calls number one.
Gotta be.
Yeah. So who do we have next? Bev, let's see here.
Here's one that she had up there. What do you think? Try to negotiate a kill fee. My licensing deal canceled right after minimum guarantees. Yeah, Bev. So I know what you're talking about. So to give everybody more context, Bev's asking to do a kill fee on a licensing deal, which is if they don't produce the product within the 3-year minimum period, they have to pay a fee. I like to get an upfront fee so that it's not a back end fee that you're trying to go after the relationship is kind of spoiled. It's more so on the front end, right? They've got to invest money on the front end. This deal, I will tell you, this is something derived from experience. So it'd be very hard to discern whether a deal justifies upfront fees or not. But from experience, there's certain deals that justify upfront fees. I had one deal that I got about $50,000 or exactly $50,000 up front. And so that deal made sense for that scenario, where this one, it did not make sense. And so Bev, I guess, don't try to make a kill fee, but because people don't like the idea that they're going to fail. And so they don't want to have to pay a fee after they fail. Try to negotiate in, and we can talk about this specifically, on your next deal, is get that upfront fee into the deal structure so that you can, not have this scenario where they wait the 3 years and end the relationship after that.
Well, and to your point, David, is if they give you the upfront fee, essentially what I refer to as the sign-on fee or sign-on bonus, is it helps them to be more invested in the success of the product too. I feel like, while your relationship is doing well. If you have a kill fee, it's kind of like going through a divorce where like everybody hates each other, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to
money.
Yeah, I'm trying to collect my money, give me my money, and they're like, I don't want to give you your money,
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, that's right. I mean, psychologically, even if it's $1,000 on the front end, they have now a sunk cost that they need to get back, and the way they get it back is by launching your product and making money with it. So I guess
it's more of like a positive, like you said, it's psychological positive type of thing. Hey, we're working together as a team, and let's do this.
Yep.
So I like that. Okay. All right. So Hazel sent us over something here from Ozzy Joe LinkedIn. Hi, David. Have you ever pitched to a company who is interested in your idea, but expects the inventor to provide the contract agreement? Is this common? What do you think, or what do you make of this? Any advice?
Yes. I'd say it probably happens like 20% of the time, maybe a little bit less. And really it's industry specific. So like some industries it's very common, some industries it's not. But some industries call it like writing on your own paper. So they want you to write it on your own paper, meaning they want you to supply the contract. And there's one advantage, but there's way more disadvantages. The one advantage is they have a little section in every contract that says, if there's ever a dispute, where do we dispute it? California, New York, Chicago, blah, 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 where is it? And so like, that's the only advantage of having it written on your paper, meaning you can set the venue. The venue is where you're going to dispute any arguments, which hopefully you don't have any, but you don't write contracts for the fact that you don't have arguments. It's the possibility that you do. And so like, I would set it for Michigan. I'm in Michigan. It makes it way easier for me. They've got to fly here. They've got to hire an attorney here. They've got to work through this state. It makes it very difficult for them. And that's the only advantage. You have a disadvantage when you're writing it, because essentially you write the contract and then they get to go through and nitpick every little piece and say, well, hey, can we negotiate this piece? Can we change the wording here? Where if it goes the other way, they write the contract, then you get to go through and pick the pieces you want to negotiate. But I found a strategy that works to get the contract written in a step-by-step approach if they hire you to write it. But it's much more complex, Ozzy, in the fact that like you have to understand contracts and what's in them. And that's the part that stinks, but will advance you as an inventor, right? If you go through the process of writing a contract with a company, you're going to be way more contractually advanced than other inventors that have never done that. And so like I myself, I've had so much experience with contracts, contract negotiation, that like I would come in and instead of presenting a whole contract, you come to them and say, hey guys, I'm working on the royalty agreement statement. What do you think about like having this set at 6% royalties? Great, good. And so like, instead of just presenting them a contract and let them pick it apart piece by piece, is you only present them piece by piece and you get them to verbally agree to each piece. And that way I've found you get to stay in the controller seat, but then you are taking your time and energy to actually produce the contract for them.
Well, and another benefit to that too, David, is in addition to like doing it like piece by piece, is also like, I mean, I had a thought, now I just lost it. Gosh darn it. I'll come back to it. But I had a good thought.
Well, okay, so like I guess the way.
Nope, lost it.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. Like the way you define royalties, like that's a huge one. And what I mean by that is when you're like getting a 5% royalty might not mean anything, because if I'm getting 5% of manufacturing cost, then that's a very, very low number. Let's say the item sells for $10 on the shelf. Well, if I'm getting 5% of $10, that's 50 cents. Well, manufacturing cost is $2. So if I'm getting 5% of $2, that's 10 cents. That is 1/5 of the royalty based on what it is off of. And so when you're going into these negotiations, like if you present to a company, you're like, I want 6%, they'll say, great. And then they'll make it off of manufacturing cost. And then that just, cuts basically your royalty down to 1/5 of what it was. And so like the definitions, and that's what I'm talking about, Ozzy, is you pull the contract apart in terms of the different terms, and then you send them over basically clauses, and you say, does this clause make sense? And then you write it the way that you want it, and you discuss it with them, and then you come back to them with another clause, and you continually do this 3-4 times, and you get the main points out of the way: royalty, improvements, grant of license, these different structures into the contract, and then you piece them apart, and then you compile them all together at the end and send them the whole contract, because they've already verbally and over email agreed to these clauses and the way that you've structured them, and then you compile them all together. So that's the best way in terms of negotiation. They won't necessarily like it. They want your attorney to write it up, send it to them, have them make all the changes, and then they send it back.
Yeah. So you're saying take it step by step, and work through it together. So it's not overwhelming for anyone. I remembered what I was going to say, because I know that looked like a really like dumb blonde moment. Sorry to offend anybody who happens to be blonde on here, but I am too. So whatever. But a lot of the times when companies ask you to do that, as opposed to taking it upon themselves, they are usually kind of like smaller companies, and it seems like they're easier to work with because they don't want to deal with it, right?
Yep, they don't. And they've never licensed stuff before because they don't have a templated contract that they used the last time they did a deal.
And that's why they want to put the work on us. So that's one of the benefits that we have should we end up being in that position. Right?
It is. Yeah. And you just got to make sure that you stay in the driver's seat. Like you can't give up that control when you're put in that position. Because if you're put in that position and you lose the driver's seat, then you essentially become a puppet that needs to do all their work for them. And you don't want that position, because then you don't have leverage and say in the contract.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like that a lot. Well, we're going to need to wrap up here soon because we're about at the top of the hour.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We have a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah, let's hot seat it.
Let's hot seat it. Okay.
We're terrible at the hot seat, by the way.
We're horrible at the hot seat. Okay. Ron says from YouTube, how could one go about an advertising related invention that could be a difficult patent?
Ron, you probably need some follow-up information in the fact that it's just so advertising related invention is like, okay, if it is a physical sign, like a new type of realtor sign for open houses, then that's pretty simple because it's a physical structure. But if you're saying like a new way to advertise, it sounds more like a business model than it is an invention to be licensed. Amy Jo, your thoughts?
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, we need to, I agree with David. You need follow-up information because we don't have any information as to what you're referring to. But if it's something that, like, okay, an advertising related invention, if it's something that's potentially patentable, you have to consider public disclosure, which is exactly what you want to do when it comes to advertising. So like, it's a kind of like a tricky little question there. Because if you have a new related invention and you do disclose it publicly, you're going to have to figure out if you're going to patent it or not, one way or another, within 12 months. And this is not legal advice. We're not attorneys, but that's just what the law is. So,
and so I guess, Ron, it depends. In most questions, it depends, right? If you're a physical structure, you're going to license it like anything else.
If it's copyright, that's different.
Yeah.
So it just it depends on if it's like a trademark, copyright, patented type of thing. We don't know how much you know about like the differences of those three different, types of things when it comes in order of protection for your idea. So it's kind of hard to answer that question, but I'm going to give you props because that's a tricky one. So
is.
advertising, patent related. There you go.
Very, very tricky. And
Yeah.
if you wanted to email me, David at Invent Tribe, we can try to figure out how to help you out on what path is possible with more details. So do email me, and anybody else that's on here, if they wanted to email me if they had questions, and Amy Jo.
Yeah. And my email is amyjo, AMYJO @inventtribe.com. So you guys can reach out to either one of us or both of us. All right. Let's see here. Let's finish it off here.
We got two more, and we'll just do these last two, and then we'll call it a night.
Okay. Is it a good idea to present a product where you have a first generation new product and you also have, and you also present them with what could be, sorry, I can't see this.
Here, I got it. Is it a good idea to present a product where you have a first generation new product and you present them with what could be the second generation improvement on the same product, future, new, and improved? Keep in mind the first generation by itself is a good product. So, Tim, if you have two generations of the product, they're probably just going to go with the second generation. They're just going to go with the second one. They're not going to want to invest in the first one and then cannibalize their investment in the first one to then go to the better one. So, unless they're very like segmented and different and can essentially stand alone in two different marketplaces, it doesn't make sense for them as a company to license both products. One is inferior to the other and make an investment in it. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't sit there and be like, hey, this is a great opportunity. Like, let me invest in both. Like I would just invest in the better one and sell more of that.
Yeah. And like you said, it could be different categories, for example, though. Like if you license one in one category and then like maybe one's kitchenware, maybe one's pet industry type of thing.
Yeah.
Where it works better in the pet industry, who knows? But yeah, I agree with David on that one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you have to put yourself in their shoes from a business perspective.
Yeah. Would they want to make that investment? No, I just go for the better one, new and improved.
Yeah, I agree. All right, last one here. I was looking at Nike's submission portal. Ooh. And after reading their legal disclaimer, it actually stated that nothing is confidential and this is not an agreement of compensation. Is this normal? It's normal for Nike.
Yeah, it's normal for Nike. It's normal for the apparel industry. So Nike, Reebok, Adidas, Under Armour specifically, I know that they have that too. So apparel industry, they are not very inventor friendly. So if you have anything that goes to them, I'm assuming if it goes to Nike, it goes to all those ones too. So they're not very inventor friendly. They don't license products well. So it's a very difficult space to successfully do this.
Yeah.
And it's been done, but it's not common and it's not probable to have success there.
Yeah, like I mean, I had a student who I still talk to on a regular basis who had a deal with Under Armour, and then that deal was lost, and then he reiterated the deal like a year later, and then ended up losing it again because they just were not easy to work with, and the fact that he was even able to get as far as he did was impressive. Mm-hmm. So. I mean, those apparel companies are very challenging to work with, guys. So,
I pitched a product to North Face. It's got to be 10 years ago now. And they called me back, and the guy was super nice. And he's like, "This is a cool innovation." But he's like, "Let me let you in on something." I'm like, "What is it?" And so like, I don't know if that's my like superpower is just to get people chatty, but like I get every one of my licensees just chatting about stuff. And so he was telling me, he's like, you ever see a knockoff pair of like Coach sunglasses or Prada purses? I'm like, yeah. He's like, that's part of the reason why like we don't license products is because the apparel industry doesn't respect intellectual property. And so he's like, if I were to license the product from you, he's like, I'm paying you 5%. My competitor knocks it off. they don't have to pay you 5%. I'm at the disadvantage to license a product from you. And so, and ever since that conversation, you know, I saw that as like, all right, you know, the apparel business is not as inventor friendly as you'd want. I mean, you know, I've coached people through deals there, so I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's not a friendly place. Like kitchenware, houseware, hardware, pet, novelty gift, seasonal, kitchen, Christmas stuff, like those places, you go pitch a product and they're like, here's my boilerplate contract, come sign it and let us license this deal. But like you go to apparel and they're basically like, get out of here, don't talk this, don't.
You're like a gnat. You're like,
yeah, they're like, tell us what it is, but we're not going to pay you, get out of here. Like, and so like that's why I stopped dealing in that space. And I'm not trying to discourage. I mean, I guess I am, but I'm just trying to give you the reality of what I've seen from people before you and my own personal experiences, that it's just not a friendly place to work for inventors. And
I guess, I mean, and I agree with you on that. I mean, if you're going to be in that space, like if you're adamant about it, that's where your invention is or whatever. You just have to be willing to understand that it's not going to be easy. I mean, none of this is easy. You all have to put in work. Everybody has to put in work. But this one, apparel is more difficult than the majority of the industries. And I would not personally agree to those terms and conditions. What I would personally do is try to work around the front gate and try to connect with people on LinkedIn, network that way. Like David says, kind of get chatty with them and build relationships. And that's another reason why it's more difficult, because it takes longer to do. And you don't want to agree to those terms and conditions. If they say they're not going to pay anything, but they want to see what you have, nope, that makes no sense at all. We're not just giving away free ideas.
Like you have to believe them if they put it in their contract that they're like, hey, we want to see your idea, but not pay you for it. If they're putting that in writing, that's what they really mean. Like they legitimately mean they don't want to pay you. So like, I know Stanley Black & Decker about 5 years ago, changed their agreement to say, you know, we'll pay you a maximum of $5,000. And so like, you don't get a royalty, you just get a $5,000 check if they use your product submission and end up licensing it. So, and I mean, is that legal? I don't know. You know, that's something for an attorney to talk about, but
not something that we want to agree to.
Yeah, not something I want to agree to, because if that's their intent to just pay me $5,000 for my new innovation, I'd rather go somewhere else and give it to their competitors.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yep. So you have to be careful about that type of thing. So there are certain submission agreements that are not very friendly. Even though the company says that they are willing to accept outside ideas, doesn't necessarily mean that we agree to their terms before we submit our ideas to them. So you have to be careful about that. But we are over the top of the hour, and I want to congratulate David again for signing his deal. So excited. You need to take a picture after this. We need to post it on all LinkedIn. Well, I'm only on LinkedIn, but all social media.
Yep.
And congratulate you for that. And we can go from there. And thank you everyone who has joined us tonight and for all the wonderful questions. We'll be doing this again soon, and we'll be making an announcement for that as well.
Cool. Well, yes, thank you. Thank you, Iowa Group. And thank you everybody that came from the UIA. And
Carmine for spreading the word too.
Yep. Thank you, Carmine. Yep. And thank you to all the tribe members that are here also. So appreciate everybody. I hope everybody got a little something out of it, and have a wonderful night, day, wherever you are in the world.